My girlfriend cheated with my boss. So I exposed them both and took everything they lost. They thought they broke me. They thought I would stay quiet. Instead, I rose higher than they ever dreamed and left them both in the dust. They say betrayal never comes from your enemies. It always comes from the ones you trust the most. Looking back now, it's almost laughable how naive I was. I had built my entire life on two things: loyalty and hard work. I believed that if you treated people right, if you kept your head down and worked your ass off, you'd eventually be rewarded. That good things came to good people. That if you gave love selflessly, it would come back to you. I was wrong. At 26, I thought my life was finally coming together. I had a good job at a mid-sized marketing firm, not glamorous, but stable. I had a girlfriend, Mia, who I thought was my person, my best friend, my future wife, the one I'd build a life with. We had been together almost 4 years, living in a little apartment that we painted and furnished together. Friday nights were for takeout and bad movies, Sunday mornings for pancakes and sleeping in. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And then there was Trevor. Trevor was my boss. The guy who wore tailored suits, gave big flashy smiles at meetings, and always knew the exact right thing to say to charm clients and executives alike. To the outside world, he was charisma incarnate. Inside the office, though, he was something else. Trevor was ruthless, manipulative, and played favorites, but he was smart about it. You didn't see the knife until it was already in your back. I kept my distance where I could, doing my job, staying out of office politics, and keeping my head low. Mia knew about Trevor, of course. She'd met him once at a company dinner. She said he seemed funny and so confident, smiling that pretty smile of hers as Trevor joked about stealing me away to his team full-time. I didn't think much of it at the time. In fact, I was just relieved that Mia was relaxed. She hated formal events and usually clung to me the whole night, but that night, she had been at ease. If I had paid more attention, maybe I would have noticed the way Trevor's hand lingered a little too long on her back when they said goodbye, or how Mia giggled at something he whispered, not bothering to tell me what he said. But hindsight is a cruel, cruel teacher. The first real crack came when I started noticing Mia texting late at night. I'd be brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed, and she'd be sitting on the couch, texting furiously, smiling down at her phone like it held the secrets of the universe. When I asked who she was texting, she'd say Sarah, her best friend from college, or work drama, even though Mia's work drama had never once made her grin like that before. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was unthinkable. 2 weeks later, it was a random Wednesday night. I had stayed late at the office finishing up a quarterly report Trevor had accidentally dumped on me last minute. By the time I drove home, exhausted, it was almost 10 o'clock. The apartment was dark when I walked in, except for the light in the living room. I figured Mia was asleep. I figured wrong. There she was, curled up on the couch, whispering into her phone. She didn't notice me at first. And then, clear as day, I heard it. Her low giggle, the teasing voice she only used when she was flirting. "I miss you too," she said. A long pause. Then, softer, "When are we going to see each other again? I don't care if it's risky. I want you." I stood there frozen, like a glitchy machine. My keys dropped from my hand and hit the floor with a metallic clatter. Mia jerked up, whipped her head around, and the look on her face when she saw me was pure, naked horror. For a second, we just stared at each other, and then she did what cowards always do. She hung up without another word. She tried to play it off. "Of course. Oh my God, it's not what you think. He's just a friend. We were joking around. You're overreacting." I didn't say a word. I just walked to our shared bedroom, packed a bag in silence, while Mia trailed after me, crying and begging and swearing it was all nothing. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't demand an explanation, because somewhere deep in my gut, I already knew the truth. And I knew that if I stayed to hear her excuses, it would break me. I slept at a cheap motel that night, alone, humiliated, hollowed out. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just lay on a stiff mattress, staring at the yellowed ceiling tiles, replaying every smile, every touch, every whispered "I love you" that now felt like a lie. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth. No more guessing. No more hoping. I was going to tear apart every last illusion they had tried to build around me and make them regret ever thinking they could walk over me. The next few days were a haze of rage, humiliation, and disbelief. I didn't go home. I didn't answer Mia's frantic calls or her guilt-drenched text messages. Instead, I stayed at that shitty motel, eating greasy takeout, showering under lukewarm water, and replaying every moment of our relationship like a sick movie stuck on repeat. I didn't just want to know what happened. I needed to know. I needed the whole ugly truth, no matter how much it destroyed me. On Friday, I finally gathered enough courage to go back to the apartment. Not to reconcile. I was long past that. But to get the rest of my stuff. I planned it like a military operation. Slipping while Mia was at work. Grab what I needed and get the hell out. I should have known better. The second I opened the door, there she was, sitting on the couch, knees pulled up to her chest like a child. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was a mess, and her face was blotchy from crying. For a second, seeing her so broken almost chipped away at my anger. Almost. She jumped up the moment she saw me. "Ryan, please, just let me explain," she begged, her voice cracking. I ignored her. I didn't want her apologies. I didn't want her crocodile tears. I wanted answers. Who was it? I asked, my voice low, controlled. She froze. I repeated, slower this time. Who was it? Her eyes darted everywhere except my face. The classic sign a liar caught with no escape route. "It doesn't matter," she whispered. It didn't matter? She had set a bomb off in the middle of my life, and now she wanted to pretend the shrapnel didn't exist? When she saw that I wasn't leaving without the truth, she cracked. "It was someone from your work," she mumbled, wringing her hands. I felt a cold spike drive through my stomach. "Who?" I said again, stepping closer. "Say it." Tears welled in her eyes. She bit her lip so hard I thought she'd bleed. And then, finally, she whispered it. Trevor. Trevor. I actually laughed. A harsh, hollow sound that didn't even sound human. It was too ridiculous. Too pathetic. Too predictable. Of course it was Trevor. The smooth-talking snake in a suit. The man who smiled at me in meetings and slapped me on the back while stabbing me through it. The man who had everything. The clients, the bonuses, the respect, and still wanted to take what little I had for himself. Mia broke down sobbing, saying it just happened, and she never meant for it to go that far, and he was just so different, and she felt lonely, and 1,000 other excuses that blurred into meaningless noise. I didn't stay to hear the rest. I finished packing what little of my life hadn't been contaminated by her betrayal, and left without looking back. The next few weeks were hell. Mia tried to contact me nonstop, calls, texts, emails, even showing up outside my motel a few times. I blocked her everywhere. I didn't need any more lies in my life. What I needed was to rebuild. But rebuilding wasn't easy. Not when Trevor was still sitting pretty at work, acting like nothing had happened. Not when I had to see his smug face in the hallways, hear his fake laughter floating down the corridors, knowing he thought he had won. I could have quit. I could have walked away, but something inside me refused. No, not this time. For once in my life, I wasn't going to be the guy who took the punch and turned the other cheek. I was going to fight back. It started with small things, careful observations, noticing how Trevor handled client accounts, how he doctored reports when deadlines were missed, how certain expenses seemed suspicious. Then came the late nights, not at the bar, not wallowing in self-pity, but in front of my laptop, combing through old emails, documents, anything I could find. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Trevor wasn't just a cheater. He was a fraud. He had been skimming money off client budgets, padding invoices, rerouting bonus payouts through side accounts. It was subtle, just enough to go unnoticed during routine audits, but blatant once you knew what to look for. The man wasn't just morally bankrupt. He was stealing, plain and simple. I gathered everything, screenshots, financial records, discrepancies in reports, all neatly organized into a digital dossier. I didn't go to HR. I didn't go to my direct supervisor. No, I went straight to the top, the CEO herself. Her name was Miranda Shaw, and she didn't suffer fools. I scheduled a private meeting under the pretense of discussing a critical ethics violation. When I sat down in her sleek glass-walled office, she barely looked up from her computer. "You have 5 minutes," she said curtly. I slid the USB drive across her desk. "Everything's on there," I said. She raised an eyebrow but plugged it in anyway. For the next 10 minutes, she clicked through file after file in silence, her expression growing darker with every page. When she finally looked up, her face was carved from stone. "Thank you, Ryan. She said coolly, "We'll handle it from here." And just like that, the wheels began to turn. It didn't happen overnight. Corporate machines don't turn on a dime. Even with all the evidence I had given her, Miranda Shaw needed time. Time to verify the documents. Time to loop in a legal team. Time to calculate exactly how to cut Trevor's head off without making the whole company bleed. But behind the scenes, the walls were closing in. I saw it in Trevor's face the first time Miranda called him into a private meeting. He strutted in like he owned the place. That same cocky smirk, that same designer suit. But when he came out an hour later, he looked different. Sweaty, pale, tight around the eyes. Still, he tried to act normal, laughing too loudly in the break room, organizing useless meetings, pretending everything was fine. But the cracks showed. He started snapping at people in open plan meetings, accusing others of mistakes he usually would have brushed off. He micromanaged stupid projects, desperate to look involved, important. It was pathetic to watch. This man, who had once felt 10 feet tall to me, was now crumbling under the weight of his own lies. Meanwhile, I kept my head down. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk when he passed me in the halls. I was invisible, just another cog in the machine, exactly how I wanted it, because I knew something he didn't. The hammer was about to fall. It happened 3 weeks later on a Thursday morning. I was at my desk, sipping bad office coffee, scrolling mindlessly through emails when a notification popped up. Mandatory all-hands meeting. 11 a.m., conference room 1. My heart started pounding. When we filed into the huge glass-walled room at 11 sharp, Miranda was already standing at the front. No smile, no greetings, just cold steel in her eyes. "Good morning," she said. "Today's meeting is regarding serious matters of compliance and ethical conduct." The room went dead silent. Trevor was sitting 2 rows ahead of me, shifting in his seat, like a man strapped to a chair with a ticking bomb under it. Miranda didn't drag it out. She outlined, point by point, the breaches they'd uncovered, the stolen bonuses, the falsified expenses, the doctored reports. No names yet, just facts. And then, finally, she said it. "Effective immediately, Trevor Benson's employment with Shaw Marketing is terminated for gross misconduct and violation of company trust." Gasps broke out across the room. Some people looked at Trevor. Some looked at Miranda. I just stared straight ahead. Trevor didn't stand up. He didn't argue. He just sat there frozen as 2 security guards came to escort him out. As he walked past me, red-faced, humiliated, our eyes met for just a second. He knew. He knew it was me. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I didn't give him the satisfaction. I just watched him disappear, carrying his box of shame, and felt a cold, hard satisfaction settle my bones. It was over. Trevor Benson was finished. But life wasn't done surprising me yet. The very next day, Miranda called me into her office again. I thought maybe she wanted to thank me, maybe offer some polite corporate platitude like, "Good work," or "We appreciate your integrity." Instead, she handed me a promotion. Officially, I was now the senior project director, Trevor's old title. Along with it came a massive raise, my own private office, and a shiny new benefits package. It was more than I had ever dreamed of, more than I had even dared hope for. "You kept your head down when others would have made a scene," Miranda said, looking me straight in the eye. "You stayed professional. You followed the chain of command. That's the kind of person we want leading our teams." I thanked her, calmly, professionally, but inside, I was on fire. This wasn't just a promotion. This was vindication. For every late night, for every thankless project, for every time Trevor or Mia had made me feel small. I had won, not by lowering myself to their level, not by screaming or begging or demanding, but by being smarter, by being patient, by waiting for the right moment, and striking without mercy. Of course, news travels fast. Mia found out within a week. She showed up outside my new office, clutching a sad little bouquet of flowers from the gas station across the street, her eyes huge and watery. "Ryan," she said breathlessly, "I just wanted to say, I'm so proud of you. I knew you'd make it. I always knew." I stared at her, This woman who had gutted me and left me bleeding on the side of the road, like roadkill. She looked smaller now. Pathetic, even. Her makeup was smudged, and she was wearing one of those desperate too-tight dresses women wear when they're trying to claw back a man who's already moved on. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I just turned around, walked back inside, and shut the door in her face. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I smiled. The months after Trevor's firing were some of the most surreal of my life. At first, everything felt like a dream I might wake up from. Every time I walked into my private office, every time I signed my name under a new project as Senior Project Director, there was a small voice in my head whispering, "This can't really be happening, can it?" But it was. It was very, very real. I wasn't the invisible junior anymore. I was the one clients came to. I was the one invited to sit at the table during big meetings. I was the one being groomed for even bigger things. It wasn't long before Miranda started involving me in upper-level discussions, meetings about the future of the company, about expansion, about potential acquisitions. That's where the next twist of fate came in. Shaw Marketing had been struggling in secret for a while. The Trevor scandal had shaken a lot of our biggest clients. Revenues were down. Morale was shaky. Miranda was looking for investors, partners, or maybe even buyers. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured some giant firm would swoop in, buy us out, and I'd end up being another cog in a much bigger machine. But then I met Caleb Harker. Caleb was a self-made billionaire, one of those guys who built an empire out of nothing but brains, guts, and pure stubbornness. He had a reputation for being ruthless but fair, and he wanted Shaw Marketing badly, not just because of our client list, not just because of our market position. He wanted us because he saw potential that, according to him, was rotting under weak leadership for years. When Caleb visited the office, he didn't spend much time talking to Miranda. He talked to me, asked me questions about operations, about processes, about personnel. At first, I was cautious, diplomatic. But after a while, when I realized Miranda was likely planning to sell regardless, I started being honest, brutally honest. I told him what worked. I told him what was broken. I told him how I would fix it if I had the chance. And Caleb listened, really listened. 2 months later, the sale went through. Caleb bought Shaw Marketing, lock, stock, and barrel. And 3 weeks after that, he called me into his temporary office. "I want you to be my eyes and ears here," he said simply. "You've got the brains. You've got the instincts. And you've already proven you're loyal to the company, not to your own ego." I like that. I stared at him, hardly breathing. "I'm offering you a piece of it," he continued. "Ownership, a minority stake. It won't make you rich overnight, but it'll make you a hell of a lot richer than you are now. And more importantly, it'll make you a real part of this company's future." I don't even remember saying yes. I think I just nodded like a fool, heart pounding so hard I couldn't hear anything else. I became a part owner of the company I once thought I'd be stuck at forever as an invisible nobody. It still didn't feel real, even when the paperwork came through, even when my first profit-sharing check hit my account and made my eyes water. Meanwhile, life outside of work continued to be complicated. Mia didn't give up easily. After her pathetic first attempt to worm her way back into my life, she tried a new tactic, playing the victim. First it was long emails, pages and pages about how she had made a mistake, how she missed what we had, how Trevor had pressured her and manipulated her, how it wasn't real and she always loved me. When I didn't respond, she escalated. One night, I came home from a late meeting to find her sitting on the steps outside my apartment building, clutching a 6-pack of cheap beer and a crumpled hoodie against the cold. She looked so pitiful I almost felt sorry for her. "Ryan," she sobbed when she saw me. "Please? I don't know where else to go." I stood there, keys in hand, heart stone cold. "You have plenty of places to go," I said quietly. "Just not here." She grabbed my wrist, desperate. "I made a mistake. One mistake. You're really going to throw away everything we had." I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman who had gutted me. The woman who had smiled in my face while sneaking around behind my back. The woman who, even now, couldn't apologize without making herself the victim. "You threw it away," I said. "Not me." And then I turned and walked inside, leaving her sobbing in the cold. After that, Mia stopped trying. At least directly. I heard through the grapevine that she had tried to sue Trevor for emotional damages, claiming he had manipulated her into the affair and ruined her life. Of course, it didn't go anywhere. Trevor had his own problems. Last I heard, he was selling cheap real estate out of a strip mall 2 towns over, a far cry from the shiny skyscraper life he once flaunted. Neither of them had gotten the fairy tale ending they thought they deserved. And me? I was just getting started. Owning a piece of Shaw marketing changed everything. Suddenly, I wasn't just another employee worried about promotions or bonuses. I was an owner. I had a voice at every table, a say in every decision. It gave me a kind of quiet power, the kind that didn't need shouting or boasting to be felt. It was in the way people looked at me now, with a mix of respect and caution, the way emails were worded just a little more carefully when they landed in my inbox. Success didn't heal the scars Mia and Trevor left behind, but it made the sting of hell of a lot easier to live with. Still, the final closure, the real, soul-deep satisfaction, didn't come until months later when life handed me one last unexpected gift. It was a Saturday afternoon when I got the call. I didn't recognize the number at first, but curiosity made me answer. It was Caleb's assistant. "Mr. Harker would like to meet with you regarding an acquisition proposal," she said crisply. "Would you be available this evening?" An acquisition? Of what? Still, I agreed. I dressed sharp, drove downtown, and met Caleb at a swanky rooftop restaurant that overlooked the entire city. The man never wasted time. "There's a small firm I'm interested in acquiring," he said, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. "Nothing big, just something I want to fold into Shaw's operations. Fresh blood, young energy." He slid a thin folder across the table. I opened it and nearly laughed out loud, because staring back at me from the inside of that folder was Trevor's face. Apparently, after being fired, Trevor had scraped together enough cash to start a tiny marketing consultancy, Benson Solutions, a pathetic one-man operation running out of a co-working space. And now, Caleb wanted to buy it, crush it really, and fold its handful of clients into Shaw, just to mop up competition, before it even became competition. It wasn't even personal for Caleb. It was pure business. But for me? Oh, for me, it was deeply, deliciously personal. Caleb noticed my smirk. "You know him?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Let's just say," I said slowly, "he's an old acquaintance." Caleb chuckled. "All the better. I'm authorizing you to handle the acquisition personally." I signed the paperwork that night. The next few weeks were like watching a slow-motion car crash. Trevor tried to resist, of course. Tried to claim he had big plans and massive potential, and that his little company was on the verge of exploding. But the reality was brutal. His client list was tiny. His contracts were weak. His finances were a mess. He had no leverage. Eventually, backed into a corner with no way out, he accepted Caleb's offer, which, I should note, was insultingly low, barely enough to cover the debts he'd racked up trying to keep his company afloat. And because fate apparently has a sense of humor, guess who was assigned to oversee the transition period? Me. The day I walked into Benson Solutions' pathetic little office, Trevor's face turned the color of sour milk. He tried to play it cool, tried to act like he was doing us a favor, selling his brand to Shaw Marketing. But we both knew the truth. I own him now. The same man who had tried to destroy me, both professionally and personally, was now handing over the keys to his sad little empire. And I didn't even have to lift a finger to make it happen. Mia's final descent was even more pitiful. After the failed lawsuit against Trevor, she bounced between short-term jobs, always chasing some illusion of quick success. Instagram influencing MLM pyramid schemes, even a brief, disastrous OnlyFans stint. Nothing stuck. Eventually, she reached out one last time. This time, not with flowers, not with tears, but with pure, raw desperation. She emailed me a long, rambling message about how hard life had been, how she missed stability, how she wanted to reconnect, even suggesting we could start fresh because people change. She even attached a few old photos of us together, like some desperate bribe to stir up nostalgia. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, silent, not angry, not sad, just stunned. Mia didn't love me. She didn't even know how to love anyone. She loved comfort. She loved security. And now that hers had dried up, she was scrambling back toward the last man who had ever truly cared about her. But I wasn't that man anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't rage. I didn't even acknowledge her existence. I simply deleted the email and every trace of her I had left from my life. Gone, like she had never been there. Life now is quieter. Better. I bought a house just outside the city, big, sunlit, surrounded by old oak trees. I still work at Shaw, but on my own terms. I take vacations when I want. I mentor younger employees, teaching them how to navigate the game without losing their souls. Sometimes I wonder if Mia or Trevor ever think about me, if they regret, if they ache. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It doesn't matter, because in the end, they taught me a lesson I could never have learned any other way. When people show you who they are, believe them, and when they try to burn you down, rise higher, shine brighter, and let them choke on the ashes. The funny thing about revenge is that it doesn't feel the way you think it will. You imagine fireworks, triumphant music, some grand, cinematic moment where the people who hurt you fall to their knees, begging for mercy they'll never get. But that's not how it feels. At least, not for me. When Trevor signed a final document surrendering his pathetic company, when Mia's desperate email disappeared into the trash, there wasn't some glorious explosion of joy inside me. There was just peace, a deep, quiet peace I hadn't felt in years. Because it wasn't about them anymore. It was about me, choosing myself. Finally, life didn't magically become perfect after that. There were still hard days, nights when the old memories would sneak up on me, Mia's laughter, Trevor's smug grin, like ghosts clawing at the edges of my mind. But they didn't have power over me anymore. They were just shadows, background noise. I focused on my work. I poured my energy into building something real, something no one could ever take away from me again. I traveled. I learned how to cook something besides microwave dinners. I picked up hobbies I never thought I'd have time for: boxing, photography, woodworking. I started living for myself, not for some fantasy of a future that had been shattered long ago. And slowly, almost without realizing it, I built a new life, a better one. Family was tricky. My parents, bless them, had no idea about the full scope of what had happened. They knew Mia and I broke up. They heard some vague rumors about Trevor leaving the company. But I never told them the full story. Not because I was protecting Mia or Trevor. I owed them nothing. But because I didn't want that darkness tainting the new life I was building. I saw my parents for birthdays and holidays. We made small talk about work, the weather, sports. And that was enough. I didn't need their validation anymore. I didn't need anyone's validation anymore. One afternoon, about a year after the dust had fully settled, I sat alone on the back porch of my house, watching the sunset turn the sky into a blazing canvas of gold and fire. And I thought about it all. How far I had come, how low I had fallen, how much I had lost and gained. I realized something important that day. The real win wasn't the money. It wasn't the promotions. It wasn't the house, the fancy title, the whisper respect. The real win was this. I was free. Free from needing people who never cared about me. Free from believing that love meant sacrificing your own dignity. Free from the endless cycle of giving and giving and giving and getting knives in return. I had my own back now, and that was enough. That would always be enough. 6 months later, on an ordinary Saturday morning, I found myself walking to the local farmer's market, coffee in one hand, reusable bag slung over my shoulder. It was nothing special. Fresh tomatoes, crusty loaves of bread, people walking their dogs and laughing under the spring sun. And yet, something about it made me stop for a moment, to breathe, to feel the air on my skin, to smile, not because anything spectacular had happened, but because I was simply content. I hadn't felt this way in a long time. There was a time when I thought happiness had to be this giant, roaring thing. Big career wins, grand romantic gestures, dramatic moments of redemption. But standing there, coffee warm in my hand, sunlight on my face, I realized the truth. Happiness is quiet. It's found in the little things you build when no one is watching. The things you build not for validation, not for revenge, but just for yourself. Love? I wasn't chasing it anymore. I went on a few dates here and there. Careful, slow steps back into the world of trust and connection. But I didn't force anything. If it came, it would come. And if it didn't, I was still good. I had my career. I had my friends. Real ones now. The kind who cheered for my successes and stood by me during my lows. I had my health, my freedom, my future. I had myself. And that was more than enough. Sometimes people ask me if I ever regret it. Exposing Trevor, cutting me off, choosing the cold, hard road instead of forgiving and forgetting. The truth? Not for a second. Because I know exactly where that old road would have led. A lifetime of being second best. A lifetime of wondering why I was enough. A lifetime of swallowing my pride and shrinking myself down for people who never deserved me. I didn't lose anything that mattered. I gained everything that did. Last week, I got a call from Caleb. He's planning another big expansion, a merger this time, and he wants me to lead it. It'll be the biggest project of my career. Huge money, huge responsibility. Exactly the kind of challenge I used to think was impossible for a guy like me. But now I know better. Now I know what I'm capable of. And whatever happens next, I'm ready. Because this time, finally, I'm living for myself. And no one, no betrayal, no mistake, no heartbreak will ever take that away again. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories like this. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.